Next, we have a great panel of recycling leaders in our state, and they're going to be talking about curtailing contamination. And I would like to introduce our board member, Kara Berst, who is the Undersecretary of Outreach and Services for the Chickasaw Nation. Kara is going to be our moderator today. So Kara, take it away.
Good afternoon. Thanks, Ellen. So we have a great lineup of recycling professionals here to answer some of our biggest contamination questions. So let's start with introductions. As Ellen mentioned, I am Kara Berst. I'm a proud member of OKRA, proud board member of 2 terms now. So now on to our panelists. Brett, could you get us kicked off?
Sure. I'm Brett Scoville. I'm the solid waste manager for the city of Norman. I'm a recent addition to the OKRA board, and I'm still learning, but it's a great group, and I'm glad everybody's here. Lots of good friends in the audience. A few I haven't seen in quite a while, so nice to hear from everybody.
Glad to have you here with us. How about you, Chris?
Chris Knight, I'm with the city of Stillwater. I'm the solid waste director for the city.
Thank you. And next we have Bobby.
I'm Bobby Schultz. I'm the executive director of the Metropolitan Environmental Trust here in Tulsa. Most people refer to us as the Met.
And last but not least, Tracy.
Hi, I'm Tracy Horst. I'm the Director of Environmental Compliance and Recycling for the Choctaw Nation of Oklahoma.
Thank you. As promised, here are your lineup of our recycling experts. So let's go ahead and jump into our questions. We will go in the order of Brett, Chris, Bobby, and Tracy, and each of you will answer the question. So our first question is, what type of recycling program do you have and how long has it been in operation? Take it away, Brett.
We have a pretty extensive program. It's very diverse. We have curbside recycling, commercial cardboard recycling, 4 drop centers, and a big compost operation. And I think our recycling alone is about 20 million pounds a year. If you add composting in there, we're at some 80 million pounds a year. This last year with the storm events, we were at 200 million pounds. So we divert quite a bit of material. It's a very successful program, and Norman has the will to make it happen.
Good. How about you, Chris?
The city of Stillwater, we have a curbside single stream program that we implemented in 2013, where we accept 1s and 2s and 5s plastics, cardboard, aluminum, tin, paper. We also have a separate glass collection. And of course, we have a yard waste curbside program also. But we also have a manned recycling center where we accept all the same recyclables I just said, but we also accept electronics, antifreeze, oil, batteries, latex paint, furniture, mattresses, regular metals, a little bit of everything. And it's been operating since 2008.
And the Met.
Well, the Met started in 1987, and it was in direct response to the lack of permitted landfill space in Northeast Oklahoma. Since then, we offer a lot of programs, but we're best known for our recycling depots. We have 10, 3 are in Tulsa, and we have Sand Springs, Glenpool, Owasso, Collinsville, Broken Arrow, Bixby, just all around the area. And we collect newspapers, office paper, magazines, number 1 and number 2 plastic containers, plastic bottles, glass bottles and jars, aluminum cans, antifreeze, used motor oil, cooking oil, household and automotive batteries, steel cans, cardboard, e-waste, and even eyeglasses.
Quite the expansive program. How about you, Tracy?
We have a hub and spoke program with 2 recycling facilities in southeastern Oklahoma. We cover about 15 different counties within southeastern Oklahoma. At each of the 2 facilities, they bring in, we just broke 30 million pounds, so we're a lot less than what Brett does. We do in several years what Brett does in a day, but we're growing or working on being able to do more. We do any types of paper except for laminated paper. Cardboard, plastics 1, 2s, 5, film, bags, aluminum, and tin. We do tires on a regular basis. We've done about 400,000 tires over the last few years. And we just do events where we do hazardous waste and electronics, but nothing on a regular basis. And we've been in operation for about 11 years.
Okay, on to our next question. What is your policy on accepting recyclables and plastic bags? And we will have a poll question that pops up for everybody joining us, but go ahead, Brett, with your opinion on plastic bags.
We do not accept recyclable in plastic bags. We have a pretty good participation rate, about a 90% participation rate. And I think in order to expedite the processing of that volume, the MRF that we use, which is a batliner for our residential and Smurfit Kappa for our commercial, they need that plastic bag to be out of there so they can expedite the processing. And it creates problem with tanglers is the biggest issue, I think. And they tend to come in, the bigger trash bags, of course, tend to come in contaminated. Right now, we are diverting our small plastic bags to the local Walmart. We just recommend that the customers take them to the Walmart. So it's our program.
Okay, Jared, did we have the poll question ready? There we go. So does your program accept recyclables in plastic bags? If everyone would please answer, we'll see what kind of split we have here. It looks like the majority is saying no with about a 75-25 split. So Chris, if you could give us your opinion and then also let us know what you would recommend for people to do with those plastic bags.
Yeah, we do not accept the plastic bags either. You know, as Brett said, they're a huge nuisance for down the line at the MRFs. And if we do have any plastic bag or recyclables that come in a plastic bag, you know, that those materials most likely will not get recycled. What we tell our citizens here, because the biggest issue we have with the plastic bags is usually the Walmart sacks. So we direct those to our local Walmart also.
And Bobby, what's your opinion?
Well, we're kind of a different situation because our depots are open 24 hours a day. They're not manned 24 hours a day, but they're also, our workers are adults with developmental disabilities. And so lots of people come in after hours and they'll drop off trash bags full of recyclables. The workers separate those. We would prefer that people brought things in cardboard boxes because those could be broken down and put into bins, but we don't really have a choice, so we have to accept those. But as far as the Walmart, Dollar General Store, Dollar Tree, come and go bags, we take those. And if I remember correctly, each bag weighs 4 grams and it takes 90 bags for a pound. And we recycled over 500,000 pounds of those Walmart bags last year. We ship those to Arkansas and they're made into basically plastic lumber, things that are used for playground equipment and fishing docks and that type of thing. So they are used, but we would prefer not to have trash bags.
Thanks for letting us know where those Walmart bags end up, because I've always wondered. Tracy, what about you?
We actually have a little bit of a split. One of our facilities works out fine to have plastic bags come in. Both of our facilities recycle plastic bags. We sort everything by hand, but we do have a line that they run through. It's easier to run materials across a sort line if they are not in a plastic bag. But if it's a situation where somebody prefers to recycle in a plastic bag or not do it, then I'm going to accept a plastic bag just to make sure that they always recycle.
Yeah, good tip there. So our next question is, does your program accept glass? What type of glass do you accept? And any tips for communities like the one I live in Ada that has a lot of community demand for glass, but we just haven't gotten it off the ground yet? Brett, how about you first?
Yes, for several reasons, Republic Services that does our residential recycle collection, we agreed with them that glass at the residential, at the home was not a very good program. Shipping and reprocessing, sent it through the MRF was caused degradation of the product and a few other reasons, shipping costs and that kind of thing. So we started accepting the glass at the drop centers, and we do about 122,000 pound load per month through Ripple Glass. And they are a wonderful company for no fee. We gather that glass up, bunker it up. When we get a load, we call them up. They come out and carry it away to Kansas City and process it and use it again. And they want more. So we are encouraging our residents to use these drop-off centers and bring us more glass. I think tips for a smaller community is I'd like to see us have regional drop centers. And I think with a little bit of manipulation and approval from our city leaders, I think we could accept glass from some of the smaller surrounding communities if they could figure out a way to transport it to us. I wouldn't have any problem at all. And I believe the people of Ripple would welcome that.
Yes, and they are actually one of our sponsors, so their information will be in our conference program. Josh at Ripple Glass is great to work with, so anybody needs that contact, please look in the program. And Chris, I'm going to keep adding on questions, but one other, what do you say to those who have safety concerns with glass?
I don't personally see, we accept glass at the curbside here in Stillwater and in our manned recycling center, which as Brett said, most of ours goes Ripple Glass also. But as far as, I'm in favor of recycling glass. I just like it was said the other day, it can just be recycled over and over and over. And I don't really see personally any safety concerns. There may be some out there, but I just don't really see anything. I think that's what we ought to be doing is recycling glass. I'm not a big fan personally, and it's just my preference of plastic, but I wish we would get back to where it used to be many years ago and recycling glass and putting things in glass. I know it's heavier, and I know it's done because of transportation costs and cheaper for the plastic, but I'd much rather us go back to putting items in glass.
And Bobby, what does the Met do on glass?
We collect glass, jars and bottles, clear, colored. We have different roll-offs that we put each of those in. And we send our glass to Okmulgee to do block, which I'm happy that it's staying in state. We like to do that when we can. And I agree, it's heavier than plastic, and the resale price isn't anything to cheer about, but it can be used over and over and over. And I think it's a good product. I know that plastic may be a whole lot easier, but when you go into thrift stores, it's real simple to find antique glass. Lots of people collect glass. I just think it's a great product, and we ought to be working really hard to recycle it.
Tracy, your take on glass and what the Choctaw Nation does and any safety concern issues with that?
We actually do not recycle glass at this time. We have drop-offs across all of southeastern Oklahoma and actually into North Texas as well. The challenge with that is when people walk in and drop it into a container, it can break. It rolls out of that container onto a concrete floor and it can break. And then we manually sort everything. We don't have optical eyes. We don't have magnets or anything to pull it out. So we do wear puncture-proof gloves, but it's still a risk. So it's not one of those things that financially we've been able to make work. And then we have the concern of making sure everybody goes home. My quote is everybody goes home with the same fingers and toes they came to work with. So we want it to be as safe as we possibly can. So there's a little bit of a challenge on that side. I'm definitely interested if I can figure out a way to make it happen and keep everybody safe, then yes, I'm totally for it. Just like Bobby and Chris mentioned.
All right, thank you. So our next question is, name 3 of your most commonly seen contaminants. And to start off, we'll have a poll question. So our choices are plastic bags, liquids of leftover food, hazardous waste, tanglers, textiles, yard waste, and scrap metals. Getting in some answers now. Looks like plastic bags is the winner so far. It looks like it's going to hold with plastic bags. So Brett, is that one of your big contaminants?
It is. If we were measuring, those of us that are in the trucking part of solid waste management, if we were measuring by tonnage, it's not as a big problem. The percentages aren't as great. But if we were just the sheer handling and the contamination and the tanglers and things that it causes at the sorting facility, plastic bags would be our largest contaminant. We get a lot of yard waste in there too. And I think that is just a little bit of laziness, to be honest with you. It's not so terrible. It's not so pervasive as a percentage of the whole, but it's enough to aggravate you. And we watch it pretty close. We try to have a one-on-one conversation with those that put their yard waste in the recycle bin. And as far as glass goes, auto glass and mirrors. We don't get a lot, but it's when you do get something like that, it's big. So and it usually ends up in the middle of the bunker. So you have to fish it out of there, and it's pretty labor intensive. So that's one that really bothers us as well.
Just top 3 contaminants you find.
Plastic bags is definitely our number one, with styrofoam, because we do not accept styrofoam in our program. And then yard waste is another one for ours, which is very odd because we do have a yard waste program. So, but we do find some. The plastic bags is definitely the biggest key. It's such a huge issue that we had to go around and created a no plastic bag decal to put on all of our recycling carts to try to educate everyone that we don't accept them. And I know why they're putting them in there. You know, they're putting the recyclables in the plastic bag because we live in Oklahoma and the wind blows and no one wants the recyclables blowing over their neighborhood. I get it. It's just that our processor that we're contracted with don't want them, and you know, every plastic bag ends up costing us more money.
As we heard earlier, the recommendations for bringing recyclables to your recycling center is to use a cardboard box and then recycle it. So hopefully some people will try that out. How about you, Bobby? Top 3 contaminants?
Well, probably food is the top one. People not rinsing out jars and bottles and aluminum cans. And that's not that distressing, but because our centers are open 24 hours a day, we receive lots of just plain garbage. We have just Monday, we had an entire pickup truck load of hazardous materials dropped at one of our depots, pool equipment and Roundup and all that sort of stuff. So that's always a problem. Mattresses. We had furniture yesterday dropped at our Coweta depot that we had to have hauled off. But I'd say other than that, styrofoam, both packing styrofoam and food packaging are big problems for us because those just end up, our workers have to take those and it just ends up in a dumpster. We have no way of recycling that.
And Tracy, what does the Choctaw Nation find?
We are blessed and fortunate to not have the issue with styrofoam. That was one thing I didn't mention earlier. We actually recycle styrofoam here too. We actually get bags of trash. So but like Bobby, the issue I think is the main issue that we run into is somebody thinks it's a trash can or something like that. So they just, or it's the easiest way for them to dispose of their household trash. So we get household trash. We get a lot of plastics that aren't accepted. So we take 1s, 2s, and 5s, but we'll get 3s, 4s, 7s, that kind of thing. Or people automatically assume that if it's a 6 and it's recyclable, but not all 6 is styrofoam. So we get a lot of contamination from non-plastics that they want to recycle. And then since we don't do glass, we get a lot of, we don't get a lot, but we have problems with glass contamination as well.
So when your facility finds contamination, what is your process and do you have to stop the line?
we have a contractor, Republic Services, does a great job, and they're always ready and willing to get out in front of whatever group we invite them to get in front of to talk about contamination. They are, the processor they use for our residential is Batliner. And certainly there's an audit there that tells us to watch our contamination if it increases. We get a monthly report and that kind of thing. So I can't speak to whether or not it stops the sorting line. I'm sure it probably does if it gets out of control. It's a repetitive thing. We do well, and then we crawfish backwards, as they say, and have to remediate and get in front of people. And they do a really good job at Republic of educating the public on what next to do. So we're happy with that.
Just how about you? What's your process?
What we tried to really stay out ahead of it also. We actually have an individual on staff that audits recycling carts every day. So we're out there trying to get ahead of it before the trucks get there to see if any carts are contaminated. And if they are, we don't service those carts, and then in hopes to speak with the customer and try to educate them on them. The way our contract is with our current processor doesn't really stop the line necessarily because the material is hand sorted. But as far as contamination, we just try to really stay ahead of it. And it's very difficult, as Brett said, because he's in a college town, I'm in a college town, and it's just an ongoing battle to educate the students year in and year out that come in about the programs and what's accepted and not accepted, and a keg is not accepted in the recycling cart and that kind of thing.
I can imagine what you found. Bobby, how about you?
We don't have a line. We just have our recycling depots, so people bring things to us. If it's during the normal workday, then we can kind of educate them as they go. If they drop things after hours, then the workers that I spoke about earlier, the adults with developmental disabilities, actually have to sort through that, and it can be a nasty, dirty process. They have to sort things out and separate them and carry the things that we can't take, the massively contaminated things, and throw them in a dumpster. And it's just a tough job.
Tracy?
The cost to dispose of it is the biggest thing. A 20-yard roll-off usually runs about $300 a month. So it doesn't take terribly long to fill up a 20-yard roll-off. You can easily fill one up once a week. On a bad week, it can probably be more. And then it's just the amount of extra time that it takes to sort materials, because you're pulling out things that you can't save or can't do anything with in order to send them. So it's the financial impact there.
Good lead into our next question. So our next question is, and we do have a lively chat, so we will get to those questions in just a second. So I appreciate the questions. Keep them coming and we'll get to them. Our next question is, what financial impacts have you seen from contamination? And if you have any numbers, please throw those in.
We don't, we structured our agreement with Republic Services that they keep both the commodity value, the rebate, and the contamination cost. So on the short term, we have no financial impact from contract to contract. However, if we have renewals with our contractor, and we go to bid every 5 years or so. So the long-term ramifications of contamination, and why it is incumbent upon us to keep contamination down, is that if we continue a chronic trend of heavy contamination, then our prices are going to go up incrementally through the contracts and the renewals. So we watch it really close. We invite, when we see a spike, Republic certainly lets us know, Batliner certainly lets us know, Smurfit Kappa lets us know, and we again, Republic is wonderful about getting in front of folks and implementing programs that help us move that in the right direction.
Okay, and I'll throw you the first chat question. So what is the ruling on bottle caps? What number are they? Years ago, we were encouraged to remove them because they were different than the bottles themselves.
Leave them on there is what Robert Pickens in Tulsa tells me. Just leave them on there. Let us worry about that. We'll float them out in the process. That's what Robert tells us. Now, there's a debate over that. The wonderful news is Coca-Cola and a couple other companies are now making the caps out of the same material that the bottle's made out of. And I think that's going to be universal in a couple of years. So we won't have to worry about it anymore.
That's great news. Any of the other panelists want to weigh in on that question?
That's the way it works in our program. Just leave the caps on. Yeah. I can't say all of them, but the majority of them are number 5s. So they're definitely can be recycled and accepted in most MRFs.
Okay, great. So hopefully that answers our question. Chris, back to you for financial impacts.
Well, in our program, the way our contract with our processor, so we're responsible for the contamination. So it actually costs our program twice as much if we have to haul off a lot of contamination. And our program is probably early on due to contamination. Our ratepayers, we've had rate increases probably up to about 13% since we started in 2013 due to contamination. And that was just to kind of get our arms wrapped around it, because when we first started, I would say that we probably wasn't as educated as we needed to be. And it was a big learning curve, and we thought we was doing really well, but it turns out we weren't. So we ended up having to renegotiate some contracts with our processor and end up costing us more money. So our rates have definitely went up due to contamination.
And I'll also give you a chat question. Is there an issue with leaving the plastic wrapper around items like coffee creamers or soda bottles? Should they be removed and thrown in the trash before recycling?
In our program, yes, that they should be removed and thrown away. And I'm not going to say that there's no one out there that won't accept that, because I don't know for sure, but the MRFs I've spoken to don't want that material. So we remove it. We ask our customers to remove it.
Does anyone else on the panel accept those items with wrappers left on?
I believe it just depends on which processor you're working with. Some say just get it in there. We just need it. We want it. And others say let's get it cleaned up. So I think it depends on your process, and that's a regional situation. Later in the program, we're going to talk about, that's something you need to do at the cash register. You look at the product you're buying and try to buy things that don't have that issue.
That's a good point. So it seems like we need to check with our local recycling center and see what's accepted there to know how to handle those products. Bobby, how about you? Financial impacts.
It costs us about $40,000 a year for Tulsa alone to haul away all of the contaminated items and all of the furniture and those type things that are dumped at our sites. I don't know that there's anything we can do about that. If they were manned 24 hours a day, it might be an easier situation, but it's pretty costly for us to have a lot of those things hauled off. As far as the caps, we ask people to take the caps off bottles, and we do the same thing with the labels. But if people bring them in, we just deal with it. It's not a deal breaker for us, but we'd certainly like to get down to the point where we had no contamination. It would sure make life a lot easier. It helps us a little bit that we have all of the income from selling the items to help offset the cost of what it takes to haul things away.
And a question from the chat is, do you prefer to accept shredded paper I'm sorry, let me try that again. How do you prefer to accept shredded paper if you accept it?
Well, we can take that and just put it in a roll off. We don't necessarily like to do that, but we offer collection events throughout the year, special collection events. And one of the things that we do there is to provide free shredding for people. So hopefully we can get them to come to that instead of dropping things off at the depots.
Since it is kind of a flyaway material, do you ask people to put it in a plastic bag, or how do they handle that?
Well, they bring it in a plastic bag. So we end up having to, we open the bag and put it into our roll-offs that all have doors, they have covers on there. So it doesn't become a big issue. If they, like we ask them to bring things in cardboard boxes, if they do that, then it becomes a problem. So I guess it's one of those situations where we hope they bring it in plastic bags.
And Tracy, how about you?
We actually accept shredded paper all the time. I'll take it in a bag or a box. It's one of the higher paying commodities that we get, so we're excited to be able to get it. We just take it and dump it into a large bin, and then we bale it ourselves and sell it, so it works out really well. From a contamination cost perspective, I mentioned that earlier as far as the cost. And I think the challenge is once we get a container, if it comes from a specific location and we know it's more of a business type location, we make phone calls and we have conversations with them and let them know that, you know, they have the same situations that cost them money in their facilities. And so we try to compare the cost to us to the cost to them. And usually they understand, and it's just a misunderstanding of not knowing what they could recycle and what they couldn't. So, and we'll get into that one, I think, a little bit later, but that's kind of where we are.
And one more question from the chat. I'll throw this to anybody that wants to answer. So someone always wondered how mixed packaging is dealt with. For example, Glade plugins packaging has both plastic and paper, and it gets recycled as one piece. How do we handle that?
For us, Glade, we don't take the Glade options with us. There's also an electronic component to that, so anything along those lines we don't really do. But if they've then we would recycle the box, and then the Glade item itself would go. So we try to rip things apart if we can. Toys a lot of times come with a plastic coating and then a cardboard box or paperboard box. So we will take that plastic out and just try to recycle the box versus the plastic. So it depends on the component and the amount of time we have to spend to be able to do certain things like that.
I don't know if I have this statistic right, but Robert Pickens told me at TRT, and I may be way off on this, but Robert said they processed the entire day's collection for the city of Tulsa in 4 hours. So that line is really moving fast. So if things aren't prepped, if things aren't coming through there properly, it's probably going to hit the garbage can. And that's, again, we've got to get that responsibility back to the individual that's placing that item in the container. And one that I just try to emphasize as often as I can: promote pre-cycling, make it work at the cash register, watch what you buy. If you can just get in that good habit, I think that helps that considerably.
And we do have a session coming up on that, so everybody stay tuned for that. So our next question is, what has been one of your most effective methods to stop contamination? And do you advocate for education, enforcement, or both?
I saw that, what is the one lesson there? And I said, I wrote a little note on here: don't get behind on the education. And Chris mentioned it a while back that with the transient population, college towns, boy, that's it's easy to get behind, and you can really see, you can get hammered. They tend to throw things at the container instead of in the container, and those sort of things. So you really got to be on your game. It's got to be an ongoing process, and you have to get out in front of the community on an individual basis, on a group basis, whatever you can grab. Take what you can get and just keep leaning forward, leaning forward, leaning forward. Talk about contamination, mention contamination, give the reason why. And the thing that I like to do is I like to go see the people that disagree with me rather than the people who agree with me. People who agree with me, I don't need to talk to them. I go try to see groups that are opposed to some of the tenets of what this organization represents, and try to get in front of them and see if I can appeal to a business sense. But it's education, education, education. It's got to be relentless. You just can't quit.
I think we all would agree with that, Brett. And Chris, what does Stillwater do?
Well, first of all, I believe in we need definitely education, but enforcement has to be a part of it too. So on both of those. But as far as contamination, one, you got to really keep your messages simple. And I've found that really helps everyone kind of understand your program and everything. But and a lot of communities are doing it now, but the recycling, auditing those carts, I think we really got to have boots on the ground looking in them. And I don't think, you can put all the material you want to the community, but it's really, really helpful if you can be looking in your cart and describing to them and showing them that this is not accepted and why it's not accepted. So it's worked for Stillwater by auditing the carts, keeping the message simple. And like I said, education, like Brett said, but you got to have an enforcement piece also.
Bobby?
We put messages out on social media all the time. Graphics and very few words, very simple, keep it simple. But we talk about batteries, we talk about composting, what can go into Tulsa's curbside recycling, which is different than what we take. We talk about what we can take that you can't put into curbside recycling and just try to make it simple. And we have special events. We have the Great Pumpkin Rescue. Last year, we collected 10,000 pounds of jack-o'-lanterns that people would have just thrown into the garbage. We've taken those and given them to local composter. But we also go into the classrooms. I think education and constant communication is the key to stopping contamination. We are educated. We have a full-time educator who was in 70 different schools in the last year providing programs on recycling, what's safe to recycle, what you can't recycle, all those type things. And I think that kids will remember that message. I remember lots of things from when I was a kid. I've said before, we had a program, I think the character's name was Patch the Pony, and it talked about nay, nay, from strangers stay away. I still remember that from elementary school, and elementary school wasn't yesterday for me. It's been a while. And I also remember the commercials about, there was one, a cartoon called Johnny Smoke, and it was, seemed like when somebody died from smoking cigarettes, Johnny Smoke burned a hole in their saddle. All that is stuck with me. I don't pick up strangers that are hitchhiking, and I don't smoke. I'm hoping that a lot of these elementary school students will remember the messages that we're trying to teach them. And will that pay dividends right away? It could. They could tell their parents, hey, you can't put that in. That's something that we don't recycle. A lot of kids that have a good relationship with their parents can do that. But it'll also pay dividends in the future, because those kids are going to be renters and homeowners in 15 or 20 years. And hopefully the lessons will stay with them and pay dividends in the future.
I've seen that with my youngest child. He takes what he learns at school, he brings it home, and that's great, because this is their planet they are inheriting from us. So if they can learn those lessons young, then we're all better off for it. Tracy, what does the Choctaw Nation do on stopping contamination?
I think back to Brett's point, that's one I always end presentations or any discussions with is educate, educate, educate. You can never stop. You have to reach out to your vendors. We kind of talked about that a little bit earlier. Their requirements change, so our requirements change. So we just constantly educate on that. We love going into the schools and having discussions with the school kids, having contests with the school kids so that they can learn about recycling and then they take it home. We've had grandmothers call us and say, my grandkids were here this weekend and gave me a hard time because I didn't recycle. How do I do it? And we kind of give them that direction and kind of work through that. So it all comes down to education and letting them know that, aluminum foil is not something that necessarily can be. So I think there's one of those things where if I had to give one lesson, it would be a little bit about more along the lines of the things we can't accept. We can take your styrofoam cup or your number 5 cup or whatever, but we can't take the lid, possibly in the straw that goes along with it. So I think there's a lot to education tied in with contamination and what you can take, and you can do it all together in one big thing and not offend anybody, but get the point across.
Okay, this is kind of a new ad question, but on the flip side of what have you done that is effective, is there anything that someone would like to share that was a great idea in theory to stop contamination and then you put it out there and it didn't really work? So something for people to avoid that you've already kind of worked through?
I had one that scared me a little bit that we tried just for a day or so, that where the driver would just leave the contaminated cart if it was obviously contaminated and leave it there and just kind of let the customer stew. And I think because we didn't, it's okay to leave it there, but you have to communicate. I think if you just let the customer stew, then all of a sudden you have a contentious situation that you have to deal with. So that wasn't a good idea. And I believe that, you know, if we can find the time, knock on the door, and that's hard to do when you have a big population, but you got to leave a note or knock on the door.
So it looks like it does all come back to education in the end. So key takeaway, educate, 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 quote from Tracy. So we do have a chat question. Does anyone take white goods, special collection events, anything for those type items? I know the Chickasaw Nation does. We're currently in the middle of our white goods collection now. You can contact me if you are close to Ada, kara.berst@chickasaw.net. I think I saw Brett raise your hand. You take white goods as well? Is that on an ongoing basis or as an event?
We have what we call our drop center hub at our transfer station. We take tires, we take scrap steel, we take white goods, we take glass, we take used lumber. We also soon are going to be taking styrofoam. Kathy Bowden has a local group here in Norman that is really on the styrofoam campaign and doing a great job, really moving a lot of material. And they were received a grant where they're going to have a densifier there. So yes, white goods is ongoing year round. When the gates are open, you can bring the stuff in there. It has to be free on free. That's the only stipulation.
All right, thanks for that information. So we have spoken a little bit about wish cycling, and that's whenever someone wants to recycle so bad, they pick up an item and think, oh, okay, that'll recycle, I'll just throw that in. What are your thoughts on wish cycling? And do you agree with the phrase, when in doubt, throw it out? How do our customers fight the urge to wish cycle? And while you process that, we will take a poll question and see what our audience thinks. So your choices are, when in doubt, throw it out, or maybe it's recyclable, I'll just throw it in there and see. It looks like most of our participants subscribe to when in doubt, throw it out. So we have some pretty advanced recyclers here today. Brett, what do you think on wish cycling?
Well, you know, unfortunately, I think when in doubt, throw it out, because we can recycle more. If those processes are moving so fast, if we can keep those lines moving, if we keep those processors going, keep them in the chips, as they used to say, then we can add volume, add more people, we can recycle more, we can get greater volumes. I know sometimes that narrows what we can recycle, but that's an issue, I think, for down the line. I believe it's something that we can merge into or morph into. Right now, I think the idea is to get as many people on board as we can with the culture of recycling. And once we've done that, then we can work out the details about the wish cycling and whether some of those things are viable or not.
And Brett, we did have a question in the chat asking to explain white goods. So can you explain to everyone a little bit about what white goods are in your area, what you accept?
Sure. Washing machines and refrigerators and dryers and household appliances.
Thank you. Chris, wish cycling.
Well, wish cycling is definitely a problem. You know, here in Stillwater, we do promote the message of when in doubt, throw it out. But I love visiting with people who are wish cycling, you know, because really, if you've taken the time to speak with them, they really are wanting to do the right thing. And they're just wanting to try to keep as much out of the landfill as possible, but they just maybe don't understand your program in your community of what you're able to get rid of, because every community is different, every state's different on what you can get rid of, just to, you know, where you're located and the outlets that you have. So it is a problem, but sometimes I think it can be a bad problem, but I also think it's a good problem. So you at least got people that are motivated to try to get rid of items. So it's better than having an individual that is not motivated to recycle anything, because it's kind of harder to get them to recycle versus someone that is a wish cycler. So
I agree. I think most people do want to do the right thing and they want to recycle as much as possible. So we're back to education. Bobby, what are your thoughts on recycling?
That's exactly right. I appreciate people who want to do that. And there are a lot of things that I have that I think, man, I wish we could recycle this. But one of the services that the Met provides, we put together, and I don't know if y'all can see this, we have a directory that we put out twice a year for residential recycling. And it lists all of the hard to recycle items, everything that we don't take. It lists where to take asbestos, asphalt shingles, propane tanks, all those type things. And that's available on the website. But if anybody gives us a call or lets us know, we'll send them a hard copy if they want it. If they're like me in old school, when you read a book, you want to turn a page, we can provide those. But we also take those out at all of our talks and visits with HOAs and companies and individuals and schools and make those available. We also have special collection events throughout the year where we advertise that we're accepting hard to recycle items. Some of the things that we take at those special events are old ammunition. We take meds. We take fluorescent bulbs. And we're going to have one in Broken Arrow next month where we're going to try for the first time medical sharps and vapes. And that's going to be a challenging thing because we can't accept the sharps in bags, obviously, or in shoe boxes or in milk jugs. So we're providing some 1 gallon sharps containers. And if people come through our drive-through event and don't have them in an official sharps container, we'll hand them one and peel them off from the line and let them put those in the box, and we'll send them off that way. And I think a lot of people now realize with our collection events that they can hold on to some things instead of throwing them in curbside recycling or dropping them at one of our depots, because we will have an event throughout the year. We also collect smoke alarms at those events, fire extinguishers, mercury thermostats, just things that you cannot really recycle easily. So that's how we try to do it, education and having special events.
Ada has a similar event. It's called Household Hazardous Waste Day. And we've had people come up and say, I've held on to this for 11 months waiting for the event. So people do appreciate it. Tracy, how about wish cycling for you?
Because I've had numerous people that I'm with Chris. I think they don't understand what it is. So I love to be able to have conversations with people about that. Because I want them to do the right thing. They want to do the right thing. There are some people that will get frustrated going, I don't understand recycling. It's too complicated, so I just don't want to do it. So there's those persons that honestly, I would almost rather them do it and it be wrong and help them to correct it and deal with the contamination than them not do it at all and all of it go to the landfill. So I am a bit torn from that perspective. But we do as much education as we can. And we're like Bobby, we do a lot of those events. We're trying to do them once a year, including the thermostats. I'm curious as to how Bobby deals with fire extinguishers, because I'd love to be able to do that. But we do a lot of those same things that he does. We toss in there as well. We do collections of old towels, rugs, and blankets. Animal shelters love those. They have to give animals baths on a constant basis. In the winter when the concrete floors are cold, the blankets and the rugs can go in there with the animals. So it's one more thing to be able to divert, but at the same time be able to help somebody out. So there's always a way to make something work and to divert it if you can. So it's just a matter of if you've got the time and money to be able to figure out and get it done.
Very good. That's a good tip on blankets and pillows and things for animal shelter. So we're wrapping up. We do have one last question. If you could get one message across to your customers, what would it be?
I wanted to mention that Michelle Loudenback and the wonderful engineers at the city of Norman had the foresight to build us a household hazardous waste facility that's going to handle the sharps and the bulbs and the paint and the thermostats and all that kind of stuff. So we're really excited about that. Should be open in a couple of months. Permanent facility. It's really nice. Really, we're very proud of it. I think if we were going to get one message across to our customers, well, personally, Chris and I talked about, well, all of us have talked about keep it simple. I love to quote Robert Pickens at TRT, Vice President of American Waste Control, TRT. He says, when you have a newbie, when you have a new person that's not really familiar with the culture of recycling, you keep it simple. You just say kitchen, laundry, and bath. And that's a good start. And then once you get them that culture ingrained, then you can elaborate. But I think you've got to keep that message very simple at first. That's what I try to get across to the customers. Very simple, very practical.
I like that for sure. How about you, Chris? One last message.
I definitely agree with the simple message that I think we've all said here today, but I would tell all of our customers, and I tell them this all the time, to educate yourself on your community's program, because like I said, everyone is different, and Brett probably experiences too, but I visit with people all the time that move here from the West Coast or the East Coast, and they do things different on the West Coast and East Coast than what we do here in Oklahoma. So just educate themselves on your community's program, because everybody does it differently.
Good tip. And you, Bobby?
I'd say don't be afraid to recycle. If you haven't done it before, you'll be amazed at how many things that you have been throwing away that could actually be recycled and not end up in a landfill. I had a man tell me once, you can't save the world. And that's probably true, but you can make a difference in your little corner of the world.
And if we all make a difference together, even if it's small, it'll end up to be a big difference. So I like that as well. And you, Tracy?
Yeah, that's great, Bobby. I love that one. I think that the one message I would put across is that recycling is important and it does make a difference. So I agree with the keeping it simple message. But there's a lot of people that think that it doesn't matter and it's not important. And I think that's the main reach out to them is it does make a difference. And, I'm always ready to hand them a flyer and say, here's what we can take. So, and this is what, from a business perspective, it will save you money. So let's see what we can do to figure it out.
We do have just a couple minutes left, so I haven't seen any new questions in the chat. So if anyone has a question, please type it in now. Or if you can use your raise hand feature, we can call on you for a question. I think you guys did a great job at answering some really hard questions, really interesting questions. So we appreciate everything that you've done for our conference today. Your contact.
I have one question.
Okay, Ellen with a question.
I think you kind of talked about this, but what's one way that you've been able to stop contamination in your program? What's been one of your most effective strategies?
Well, for us, it's auditing, education and auditing.
Auditing is a big deal for us as well. A lot of for someone, we actually go through their trash can first and let them know what's in it, and then just kind of show them what we pulled out of their trash that they can recycle. Auditing is a great way.
Crystal,
Education is the one for us, just education, consistently visiting with folks, putting things out on social media and just letting people know what is and what is not accepted.
I love it that Crystal Griffith from Republic Services comes and talks to our grade school kids, and they all take that message home to not only mom and dad, but brother and sister and grandma and grandpa and everybody else. And the child becomes the parent. And Crystal really has a big impact when she talks. It's noticeable. It creates a buzz around town. So we love that.
I think Neil Seldman has a question.
Not a question. Thank you very much for this whole program, but I want to say that it's terrific to see the faces of the people who are helping make recycling happen, the way you handle questions. It's a combination of technical skill and wisdom. It's nice to see. It's a great picture of recycling in the United States. So thanks for all the participants for sharing this information.
Thank you.
All right then, Kara, thank you, and thank all of our panelists, Brett, Chris, Tracy, and Bobby. We appreciate your time and your answers, and a lot of good takeaway. Keep it simple when talking about new stuff. I love the kitchen, bath and laundry, Brett. That was very cool. And know what your recycler takes is also great. Thank you so much.